to Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett. 3 minutes.
I'm wondering if you can shed any light on the bizarre comments made by the Taoiseach about how young working people are supposed to raise deposits and secure an affordable home to purchase, because I think it is not an exaggeration to say that vast numbers of people out there this week are absolutely puzzled and infuriated about the Taoiseach's advice that they should go to the bank of mum and dad to deal with the impossibility of coming up with a deposit, and indeed the impossibility of finding affordable housing that they could purchase. In the 1970s, if you were, say, a nurse, a couple, one was a nurse and the other was a council worker, you could probably pay a modest rent and at the same time save for a deposit for a house that was some way affordable. Look at the situation today, and this is probably a best case scenario for a young couple living in Dublin. A teacher who's earning €35,000, a clerical worker working in the council whose starting salary is €23,000. If you go to EBS, you will be allowed to borrow about €240,000, and if you manage to save the deposit of €27,000, you could try and buy a house for €270,000. But of course, the problem is that at the same time, if they're renting somewhere, a one-bedroom apartment, average rents in Dublin are €1,200 a month. So there is not a chance they can save a deposit. Now, what about the bank of mum and dad? Let's take again a best case scenario. Two public sector workers who used to be able to put money aside, but after pay cuts, pension levies, the USC, the property tax, waste charges, increases in motor tax, utility price hikes, simply do not have the money, and maybe have 3 or 4 kids anyway. So the mythical bank of mum and dad does not exist, except maybe for a pampered few in this country. And even if they managed to get through all of that, Tanaiste, where would they find a house for €270,000 in Dublin? Nowhere. Do you know how many houses were available in Dunleary under 300,000 this week? 7. Under 200,000, 0. Average house prices in Dublin are now 350,000. In Dunleary, South Dublin, they're 600,000, which also, by the way, Tanaiste, renders your affordable mortgage scheme completely useless for huge swathes of Dublin. So I just want to ask you, Tanaiste, seriously, will Fine Gael get real? What planet are you living on? Can you give some better advice than going to the bank of mum and dad to struggling working people trying to get on the housing ladder?
Right, a lot of questions there. Look, the government isn't pretending that any one initiative is going to solve the housing problem. It's a combination of a whole series of things. What was announced by Minister Murphy in the last week were 3 new initiatives: an affordable rental scheme, an affordable housing scheme, and a Rebuilding Ireland home loan mortgage system, all of which will help large numbers of people in different parts of the country, including in Dublin, to help in some cases get their foot on the housing ladder, in other cases be able to find affordable rent. We all know that the core pressure and problems linked to housing at the moment is linked to a shortage of supply. A shortage of supply of social housing, affordable private housing, and the private housing market generally. All of the indicators are moving in the right direction in terms of supply right now. But there is significant pressure. We're seeing population growth of about 50,000 extra people in Ireland each year, and we're seeing population growth in the areas where there's most housing pressure. And we are conscious of that. And that is why we need to continue to launch new initiatives that help certain segments in different elements of the market. And of course it's going to be more difficult to have an affordable housing scheme in Dún Laoghaire, Deputy. Of course it is, because land is much more expensive and it's more difficult to get, which is why there's more of an onus on the local authority there to make sure that they provide social housing and affordable housing on publicly owned sites, which is what we're pushing them to try and do. You should not dismiss good initiatives that already are attracting significant interest in terms of, and I'm talking about financial interest, I'm talking about interest from potential home buyers who are already asking questions about a very attractive new proposition whereby they could borrow for the next 25 years at interest rates of somewhere between 2 and 2.5% on an income that wouldn't have allowed them to get a mortgage previously, and at threshold levels in Dublin and Cork of up to €320,000 for the price of a house and €250,000 in most other parts of the country. This is a good initiative and should be welcomed. It is not the panacea to all of our problems. More supply is the core issue that the government is trying to respond on, and we have multiple actions that were taking place to try and deliver on that. So let's not try to fit a scheme that has been launched this week into a demand that needs a different type of solution. But let's not also pretend that these schemes aren't going to provide good and sustainable solutions for many people who don't have them today. And that is what the government needs to do on a very complex challenge in terms of housing demand that goes right from homelessness, which is dealing with the most vulnerable people, to people who can afford and want to buy homes, to be able to access affordable mortgages in the right way.
Final question.
Seriously, Minister, you want to get real here. You have to be earning €75,000 to borrow €300,000. And you can't get a house in Dublin, as I've just pointed out to you, in huge swathes of Dublin, for €300,000. So what about the vast majority of people who don't have €75,000, and in any event, even if they could, almost certainly in huge parts of Dublin can't find anywhere even for that price? Your scheme doesn't offer them anything at all, except the illusion, the fantasy of the bank of mum and dad are going to sort it out. You say in Dún Laoghaire there's a particular onus on the council to build on public land. No, Tanaiste, there's a particular onus on you to explain why your government sold off the Cherrywood site to an American property speculator, so that the prices of what will be a new town that could solve the housing crisis in the whole of South Dublin will now be totally unaffordable, and why your previous commitment that LEHA funding would deliver 40% affordable housing on developments such as that has now been abandoned. Will you restate that? Will you define what affordability is? Tell me what is affordable and who can afford it.
Thanks. I've just been handed a note here, maybe to correct the record, that there are actually 600 homes, Deputy, on daft.ie in Dublin right now, to be purchased for less than 250,000. Yeah. So I'm not saying that's enough.
Deputy Ministers, please.
I'm not saying.
Please, listen.
I'm not saying that's enough. But I am saying that we are making progress in this area. We're seeing planning permissions up by nearly 50%. We're seeing commencements up by nearly 50%. And we are seeing mortgage approvals up significantly. We are seeing the property market moving in the right direction, although there are still significant pressures to deal with public policy. Can I say, just in terms of examples, because you seem to be suggesting that the schemes that we've announced, particularly the Rebuilding Ireland home loan scheme, isn't going to impact positively on people. Let's just take some examples. A person earning $40,000 a year and living in Mayo, for example, could afford to buy a house worth $224,000, actually $225,000. Provided they had a deposit of $22,000. They could then borrow $198,000 from their local authority, and their monthly repayments would be in the region of €858 a month, or 33% of their net disposable income. That is a viable option for people, and that is why we are proceeding with it. A second example, a couple combined.
And you have to be even-handed.
So let's not, for the sake of politics, Deputy, try to undermine good schemes that can help lots of young families around the country to get on the housing ladder.